Welcome back to Incremental, the continuous improvement podcast. This is our practice edition where we talk about improvements we made throughout the week and tie them back to lean principles. I'm Uriel Eisen of Austere Manufacturing.
And I'm Devin Bedoni of Like and Precision.
And you've got our quote.
No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. Seneca.
I want to call bullshit. No. Done a lot of proving myself recently.
The facts are in, folks, and that is not correct. Yeah, I think, there's a valid point there. It is a bit of an oversimplification.
Most likely. The reason I stuck it in, I was talking to a friend. I think there's a number of people in my life who are sort of like, really? Uriel's been making buckles for the past going on 3 years? Like, that seems boring. And I think I was sort of reflecting on like the reason I've stayed interested is definitely the continuous improvement. Like buckles are pretty interesting. They're a very tough design challenge in that they're very small. Yeah. Really high loads, whatever. They're very interesting.
Can I distract you for a second?
Yeah.
How do you feel like your buckle design, like the products you're making, compare to the like spacesuit buckles you were working on before all this?
I think the one we just released as a belt.
Yeah.
I plan on sending some samples because they're better. Yeah. I mean, the reason I started this is because no one has really, in my opinion, given them enough thought.
So the hardware on those spacesuits were custom, but maybe like sort of as an aside, like people weren't putting like all their thought into buckle
for
design.
Sure. I mean, I've spent months and months, and so it's sort of like you're trying to make a spacesuit. You're not trying to make a buckle.
Yeah.
And so all buckles pretty much work. Big caveat, big asterisks, and then you read at the bottom of the page, it's like, may slip with intermittent loading, may be a huge hassle to adjust. Yeah. Like all these things where you're like, okay, but we can work around that. And realistically, my buckles also have an asterisk because everything has an asterisk. Like,
right.
May bankrupt you. No. Like, they're much more expensive. There's trade-offs to everything. I don't think.
May keep you up at night thinking about Kanban for the next 17 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's sort of what I was reflecting on is like, that is what's keeping me. It makes everything so much more interesting even when the bad, like when you have days of work you really don't want to do. Yeah. I think these are like what we've been doing here is sort of the tool, like gives you the tools to make those things less unpleasant. But also I think for me, has given me sort of the knowledge to evaluate those things, to figure out how to improve them, and also the confidence that improving them is a worthwhile pursuit and you should be spending time on. Yeah. Whereas before, I think I had this feeling like I always really enjoyed process improvement. Yeah. I think I often felt, partly because of, feedback from the world, that it was sort of like something to do after hours, right? Like if I'm paying you to do work, I don't really want to be paying you to make a jig that may or may not work, right? Like maybe just do your work. And then I would just stay late and make the jig and be like, hey, check this out. I made a jig. And it's like, oh, wow, that's awesome. That's so much faster. Yeah. Realistically, a lot of the jigs are not so much faster, but V2 or V3 or V5 is a lot faster. Yeah. And you have to have the confidence to continuously put in that effort. And it's been really nice. It's been a really fun aspect of running a business. Yeah.
I had a similar shift in mentality about 5 years ago. It was around when I went to IMTS for the first time. So exactly 5 years ago, I think, 2018. Yeah.
And for people who are not into CNCs, IMTS is like the biggest CNC show, at least in the US.
It's I think second largest in the world, they say. Yeah. I don't know how, I'm sure there's some in Asia that are massive, but it's second to the one in Europe. in terms of scale. Prior to that, I had like a deep attachment to working on projects that I found interesting in their own right. I really wanted to do design and, machine fabrication, custom tools, all this stuff, because I was kind of attached to the creativity and the process of that. And like going to this show, seeing how much was involved just in the process of machining, of manufacturing, I kind of came home being like, I don't think I really need to have any attachment to the end product, because the process and figuring out the process is exciting and interesting enough in its own right to keep me entertained or whatever, pulling my hair out,
engaged,
depending on the day.
Fully engaged in pulling your hair.
Fully engaged for, a lifetime, I think.
Yeah.
So I think similarly, figuring out where that adversity is that engages you and how much is a good amount. There are times when I do pine for the days of being a solo guy in a shop, just making interesting things. But it was at least with my connections at that point, a hard way to make a living.
Yeah.
I think probably could do better at it at this point, having made the connections I have now, but I wouldn't have done that without the business.
Imagine, just from the outside, I didn't know you back then, but I would imagine not only the connections, but also the skill, right? Like, now you bring a lot more value to the table. And so if you charged me a high hourly, I'd be like, yeah, that is worth it.
Yeah.
Whereas back then, maybe.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure you were good also, but.
Yeah, it certainly bring
level.
more to bear on the situation at this point.
I think this reminds me of the idea of target condition and setting target conditions that are challenging enough that they're hard.
Yeah.
But not so challenging that they seem impossible. I feel like this is kind of like speaks to that. It's like we do all in our own way enjoy sinking our teeth in and like applying ourselves and pushing ourselves. Yeah. And it is very rewarding to kind of sit there and scratch your head and being like, I know I can figure this out. Yeah. And I think a lot of the lean books have given me the tools to see a through line and to know there's something on the other side. Yeah. To some degree.
Which is critical.
It is. Otherwise, yeah. I mean.
Then it's just demoralizing. Or can be.
Yeah. And yeah. Anyway, so I think that's been really interesting. Speaking of blind faith and things on the other side. No, speaking of understanding principles, but then actually seeing them, we've been shrinking our batch sizes in paint. And there's pros and cons to this for sure. Like, I think Eliyahu Goldratt might, give me a rap on the knuckles because of where the bottleneck is. But it's still interesting to see.
You don't think that is the bottleneck?
Well, I think my time is the bottleneck for the business. So it increases the amount of time I'm spending painting per part on a per part basis. I'm not sure that it's increasing the amount of time. No, it is. Never mind. It increases the amount of time I spend painting, period. The reason we've been doing it is not a good reason, in that it's hard to fit a lot of different colors in large quantities in the oven right now. I think we can fix it, but and so what I've been doing is just like, instead of painting 4 racks of 8 of
a color
blue, I'm doing 2 racks of 8 of blue, so that I can also do 2 racks of 8 of orange, for example. But it's been very interesting, like just optimizing for learning from that perspective. Very interesting to see the upstream effects and the downstream effects. Yeah. In that we just need much smaller buffers upstream, because if I need to paint 3 colors today, but all 3 are halved in size, then we need half the size buffer to be able to make sure paint can do what they need to do on any given day, which is pretty interesting. It means we need to run the mill less. Next week you're going to
be painting 1 part at a time.
We're getting there. Yeah. That's the goal. Yeah. I mean, that gets me right into one of the it's not really an improvement yet.
Uh-huh.
Kind of is. We're making pretty good progress on the robot.
Yeah.
So Alicia's been messing around with that thing. We have it. I keep using like gun lingo, like getting paint down range.
Uh-huh.
we may be able to actually spray paint at a part today. We'll see.
Wow. Can I ask your approach? Are you fixed gun, moving the parts?
Yeah. The reason for us to do that is our parts are very small, and so it lets the robot do all of the part management, like picking it up from a rack, putting it in the oven, all that stuff. It also lets us mount a few guns, so we can do a mix of colors through paint. So we could do like one blue, one orange kind of thing.
Ooh.
Yeah, it should be kind of nice. And then lastly, it means you don't have to worry about like sloshing the paint.
Yeah.
Which also wouldn't be an issue if we got like a gun that was designed for painting on a robot.
Uh-huh.
Namely, that problem has been solved.
Uh-huh.
But they basically remote the pot of paint, and so now you have like lines that you need to clean out. So it's not a 100% win.
Yeah.
It's sort of a medium win. It's a you win some, you lose some.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that's the general approach. Right now we are very much pursuing it in a like let's go after full speed, just the one question mark, which at the moment is, can we reliably paint a part?
Yeah.
So our current setup does not solve a lot of the logistical issues, but I'm very confident we can solve those. Like, how do you pick up part after part?
Uh-huh.
How do you set down part after part?
Right.
How do you rack all these different parts and keeping their center of rotation on, whatever.
Yeah.
We'll solve that.
Uh-huh.
I'm very confident we can solve it. So right now we just have one rack that is permanently connected to the end of the robot. And so to get a part off of the robot, you will need to mess up the paint because we're going to just grab the part and pull it off.
Oh, yeah.
So there's no way to get good parts off of this system.
Uh-huh.
But if we're reliably spraying parts, like we have machining rejects we're going to use.
Uh-huh.
If we're reliably getting really good coverage, it's like, okay, excellent. Let's jump into
solving that next problem.
Yeah. But those ones I have complete confidence that we will solve.
Uh-huh.
At least functionally.
Yeah, like
they might not be amazing, but
that's also been done before.
Yeah. All of it's been done. Yeah. Which is really nice. Like we have videos of people painting with robots. So it's not like, can this be done? For sure it can. It's more about like controlling variables. We were sort of trying to map out all of the variables involved because we really want to just eliminate all of them from changing. One of them that was interesting is like as our paint booth filter loads up, the airflow slows down.
Oh.
And so it does change how the paint flies.
Interesting.
I don't think it's going to be, I don't know. I think we're just going to tighten up like how frequently we change it because why reject parts over like a $5 filter?
Sure. Like, almost like becomes a daily thing and like
possibly. Yeah.
Cost of doing business.
Yeah. And like I'm trying to be very aware of the principle of rationalize your production. Like if we need to increase how much overspray we have, at least in the short term, let's do that. Let's do all the things to get reliably good parts out of this process, and then we can start improving all those. I mean, obviously I'm not trying to introduce a whole bunch of waste that then we need to solve, but just like if we can get a robot painting instead of me painting, that is going to be a huge step function for the business. Yeah. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Cool. Exciting.
Yeah.
Super exciting.
Very exciting.
Talking about this for the last year plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's awesome. We've been kind of continuing on this is a little bit of a tangent, continuing on our tool organizing and, ID number thing. And, I've had several people reach out kind of like questioning the concept of not making intelligent tool numbers or human readable tool numbers.
Yep. I think it's awesome.
I think it is too. I thought I'd dive into it a little bit more and then kind of like highlight some of the issues we're already coming across that would make it more challenging if we were trying to make them super intelligent.
Do you mean intelligible?
I like both, I guess.
Okay.
Like intelligent in the sense that like there is embedded information in the number versus just being a number.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's the best way of saying that, but
like a 2 in this position means it's like a face mill. Rather than just like go look at this and it is associated with whatever.
And I think what I've kind of come to realize is that like, I mean, there is a world in which there is no information embedded in the number and it's truly just a number. But I think for most of us, like that number is going to be somewhere on a spectrum from every digit of that number representing some amount of information to some of the digits representing a broader and broader amount of information. So example would be like, or an example that we came across in discussion was like, should each diameter size have its own range, basically? So like, for example, 1/4 inches could be the 200s, 3/8 could be the 300s, that kind of a thing.
Right.
And then we chose not to, because the obvious example was, okay, so what if your 200s are 1/4 inch and your 300s are 3/8? Because that seems like a great idea. And right now we only use 1/4 inch and 3/8. And then, we have to buy a 7/32. Where does that fit in?
Right. And then you get some metric.
Yeah. And I think, or some metric tools, or whatever the case may be. So I think it's very easy to want to define these numbers more. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's more that like what I'm realizing in true incremental fashion is that we don't know enough at this point to design that system. And so I'm erring on the side of like functionality that will let us grow into. And granted, there's going to be a lot of inertia in that system and it will be hard to change.
Right.
But I think this will work and won't trip us up, I think, in the ways that designing a really intelligent system but isn't designed well because we don't have enough information yet wouldn't.
I have to say, sorry.
No, and just an example that's come up as we try and actually match these numbers to what we physically have in our tooling inventory is like another place that would be a strong temptation to make the number intelligent would be like corner radius of an end mill or square. And like just yesterday, I made a new tool. 2 days ago, made a new tool ID, ordered the tool. I specified over the phone a certain corner radius, made that whole definition. The tool came in and it had a different corner radius by 5 thou than what I thought I'd ordered. And that's in a situation where if that number was intelligent to the point at which it defined the corner radius, that number is now obsolete and wrong.
Right.
Whereas now I can just go in and say the number is identical. Like we still can track this from a tool ID tag to a bin number to a cam ID number. And I'm just going to change the definition of the tool so that when we go to program it, we know that this is a 10 thou radius, not a 15 thou radius.
Right.
And so that was just kind of another example that was coming up of why I personally keep choosing flexibility over readability or intelligence.
Yeah, to me, because I've sort of been thinking about it quite a bit as well, both for us, but also just from our conversations. I think all of the pushback against just having an arbitrary number that defines it, the ones I can come up with are all trying to avoid the need to go look at a database. Which I understand the temptation for that, but actually those are all just opportunities for eliminating a single point of truth and letting people sort of run without updating the database. But if there's no intelligibility of the label as a label, then you cannot function in the shop. If you're just like looking at a tool and somehow the tool tag got lost, you're kind of like, okay, I sort of know what this is, but it's useless to me now because I don't know. And similarly, like when you got that new corner radius, it would be tempting if there was intelligence on the number to just sort of Sharpie update that digit that says, okay, it's a different corner radius, right? Because now it does function. You pick up the tag, you know exactly what it is. So all of that's real, but it actually
now it's out of date
reduces the usefulness to the whole shop.
Yeah, and it doesn't match now the database and the CAM library.
And you could say, well, that doesn't super matter because I know what it is, because it says it on the tool and I can see. Yeah. And so, like, I just feel like saying, hey, you need to check the database. If you want to know what tool bin to go look at, don't just go looking around. Check the database. Like, it all just brings people back to using the database as the primary way of interacting with tools in general. And I can't think of a downside to that.
Yeah. Well, also, actually, and this is actually the driving thing, is that you don't, if you are following the process, you don't have to check the database, because the tool list has the ID number.
Yeah.
The drawer has the ID number. The tool tag has the ID number.
Right.
So you just find the things.
Yeah.
And you don't have to know that it's a 1/4 inch 3 flute.
Exactly.
You just find the number and you put it in the holder and away you go.
Yeah. And I think if it is intelligent, suddenly you're allowing people to sort of use their brain in a way that I can't think of a scenario where that's helpful. I can only think of scenarios where that sort of introduces a possibility and a temptation to take a shortcut that is overall detrimental to that process being, to that system being the system.
Right. It's helpful when mistakes are made and you want a quick Band-Aid fix.
But that's the thing. And it's like the second that Band-Aid gets applied in this kind of system, it really messes up the system.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like the Dewey Decimal System. That is really impressive because it solves both problems at the same time. In a funny way, like adjacent numbers mean adjacent. Is it topics? I forget. It's a clever system, which is why the guy has his name on it. Right?
I don't actually remember the Dewey Decimal System.
That makes two of us. I just know that broadly sort of how it works. We could look it up. Anyway, like if you, in any of these systems, if you violate the system, it really messes things up. And I think having intelligibility on the label. Okay, I can tell you in my shop, there's a lot of handwritten notes, which at the beginning I was like, oh, this is awesome. Because like I can just write it. I know what the tool is. That's great. But it really messes up other things. Same with handwritten Kanbans. I've found the same thing. Yeah. It's like it can only get you so far.
Yeah. Library classification system. I didn't realize that. Yeah. Invented in 1876.
Blam.
There were smart people back then.
Who would have thunk it?
Interesting. So it's kind of like maybe we should just be applying this to tools.
Oh, yeah.
Possibly.
The Dewey Decimal System for tools.
For tool management.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have to read more about it. But it sounds like there's some embedded information.
Kind of. There's adjacent information. My understanding is the number, like if you increment some of the numbers, it means that whatever. I don't know why I'm speculating about this. My understanding, loosely, I haven't spent a lot of time in libraries, is that adjacent numbers tend to be adjacent topics, but only within ranges, and it allows people to sort of organize a book by subject, but also have a total list of numbers that I think is expandable. Yeah, maybe this is a good jumping off point for tool library numbering.
Interesting. It seems like, and again, like this all sort of lives on a spectrum. Like sort of, well, it could be completely random, like I said, but we did embed some information in it. But figuring out kind of where those boundaries are seems like the critical piece of like, what are my ranges that are functional in our system based on what we know at this point?
Let me ask you this. If it is, let's say it has zero intelligibility, why not just have a barcode?
Because we don't have barcode scanners.
Okay.
Yet, anyway.
Yeah.
Also because a lot of it right now is oriented towards human readability.
So functionally you are saying like I need a 12629848.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm looking in the drawer for 12629848.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it still is a thing where we're writing down a tool list that a human reads and finds the physical objects. So it does need to be a number that like you can hold in your head easily. And right now, the simplest way to build that number is still has some intelligence to it, where it's like it's built by a tool holder and then a tool within a range that's grouped loosely.
Right.
So we are doing some grouping. So it is intelligible to some extent.
Call me Dewey. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we're doing 1,000 to 2,000 is all hole making.
Gotcha.
0 to 1,000 is all milling, side cutting kind of stuff. And then within that, there's a couple different breakdowns. So it isn't totally random. Like if you're interested in sorting it out, you can figure out. That's mostly, I think, on the creating tools side of it, though, where it makes that have less friction instead of being like, this is going to be completely random. I'm going to pick a 200. Although now that I say that, it might be simpler to just have it be the next.
Completely. Yeah.
The next number. Yeah. But
then you'd also have to know when tools go out of use, or maybe you don't care.
No,
why would you care?
They just go away. They're an empty pocket.
And no one ever uses them. And your dovetails just collapse in there, right? Your dovetail
in the
organization would just have a hole.
Sure.
Because you're basically going, should I go left or should I go right when you're trying to find something?
Yeah, which we haven't even built that whole thing yet.
Yeah.
But
fascinating.
Anyway, that was a long tangent.
That is cool.
I'm actually interested in talking to everybody about this, though. So
yeah,
continue to reach out.
Poke holes.
Poke holes. Yeah.
Early and often.
Yes. Yeah. Poke holes. I will defend my stance within reason, but I'm very open to being convinced otherwise.
All right. We got an auto screw feeder.
Oh.
It works amazingly well. We bought the cheapest one on Amazon. I've heard they don't. I've heard from people who are producing like 1,000+ pieces a day. Like, just go get the name brand one. It is so much better. We are not there. I just wanted to know if this was a good direction. But it works really well.
Yeah.
Does its job.
Puts the screws in the things.
Yeah. It's very funny to me, like part orientation in general is a real guess and check situation. Like unless you're doing computer vision solutions, which are really tricky in their own way.
Yeah.
You basically tumble parts over orienting geometry such that all the ones that are not in the right orientation fall off. Tends to be. And whether that's a vibratory bolt feeder.
Yeah.
This one is more like these scoops that rotate and cascade the parts down over this channel. And then when the screw, and then a brush that literally oscillates over the channel.
Yeah.
Brushing away all the ones that are not
down. Interesting.
Kind of funny.
Yeah.
So
back when I was designing a bottling machine, spent a lot of time watching vibratory bowl feeders and different part orientation feeding devices.
There's a very cool guy on YouTube, I'm forgetting his name, who has 3D printed basically the whole vibratory bowl feeders. Like the whole thing, except I forget what he's using as his driver to make the vibration, but
interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I guess. If I was to just buy one.
Yeah, right.
But the bowls are really expensive. So I bought the base and I'm planning on 3D printing the bowl.
Oh.
Anyway, not for this, for different stuff.
Gotcha.
So we got that. And that has really helped with assembly.
Yeah. So then do you pick that with your screw screwdriver?
Yeah, so we have, I think I mentioned this, we were struggling to pick up screws. We're thinking of using vacuum, which is a commonly used thing if you can't use a magnet. Then on McMaster, I found there's screw retaining bits.
Yeah.
Works like a charm. So this has little guiding ramps so that your driver that you can line up right over where the screw sits in its final position. So it's really very easy.
Nice.
And then our screw gun, which I bought sort of by mistake, is a press. Like when you press on it, it spins rather than a trigger. Mm-hmm. You can buy both variations. This is really nice because when you go to load a screw, because you're pressing, it spins till it falls into the screw hole.
Nice.
So yeah, it really is very effortless.
Cool. That's super exciting. Look at you making moves.
I guess it's very funny. I bought a whole bunch of stuff to make belt production go faster, and a lot of the parts are just trickling in like after we push through the whole thing.
Yeah.
So they're still awesome, but a little late.
Yeah. So I've been playing in Fusion a lot last week. Playing's not the right word.
Struggling.
Pulling my hair out, attempting to make workable programs. Made a new cam template that what I did was just copied what I'd already built in SolidWorks back in the day.
Okay.
Aiden, who works for me, built a really cool one, but it didn't really match how I think. And probably I could have just taken the time to learn it better. But I also needed to learn how to build things in Fusion. So it seemed like a good opportunity to try and build my thought process out. And it just simplified some things a bit. So that was a good little project.
Nice.
And it's going quite fast now to set up new parts. Has some advantages over what I built in SolidWorks.
Oh, cool. Fix some of the problems.
Minor advantages, but
nice.
More parameter driven. A little simpler overall, so it's just a faster flow.
Yeah. When I first got the CNC, I saw people building these templates, and I spent like a week building this like epic template. Doesn't work. It's too complicated. It's too easy to break.
Yeah.
Like some things you just want pretty basic.
Pretty dumbed down.
Yeah, dumbed down is perfect for me.
Yeah. Again, it's finding that right balance between not enough and too complicated.
Yeah. Like automates the stupid work.
Yeah.
While still letting you kind of just execute.
Yeah.
A challenge I've run into frequently more now that we're sort of hiring more functions is exactly what you touched on, and I don't know how to deal with it exactly. Having other people do CAD for me. I often get models where I'm like, okay, this isn't quite right. I need to make some changes. Just like, I don't know. Part of that is I should just let them make those changes, I think. But and part of it in saying this out loud, I think, is I need to treat the handoff with more care, like actually thinking about what I require. But I find there's this annoying balance of how much time it's going to take you for the handoff versus how much time it just takes you to build the thing yourself. Yeah. And once you've built it, you have all that understanding of how it's built.
Yeah.
And so that's been a bit of a challenge. Like I've had people doing CAD, and then they give me the model, and then not infrequently I build a new one. I'm just like, okay, I see what you did, which is helpful. It's sort of like V1.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm going to do it a different way. Like now that I'm seeing this, I realize what I wanted, maybe, and it's going to be really quick for me to just do. I am still going through the motions because I think I am getting better at it.
The motions of interpreting.
Handing it off.
Yeah.
Getting something back. I don't know. Everything is a skill to learn.
Yeah.
So like handing off these projects, I think, is really key to growing the business. Like I think I need more CAD help in general.
Yeah. Also, you won't learn like the things you're discussing right now, right? Like you're going to learn what it is you want in a CAD, whatever, template design process, in a way that you wouldn't if you just kind of kept doing it.
Yeah, I think there's that. Right. I remember you going through your post-processor process, like editing process. And the fact that it's someone else, you sort of have to think pretty hard about
what you want. Yeah.
So you can articulate that.
Yeah.
I think the other piece I'm seeing is like articulating what the next phase of the project is, and not just being like, okay, go. Being like, let's check in at this point.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you get me whatever really rough, maybe just sketch a side view and a top view, and let's send me a screenshot.
Yeah.
Because I think like there's a lot of divergence early on.
Yeah.
If you let things keep kind of
certainly
go.
Nice.
Yeah. Let me know if you have any big breakthroughs on that front. It's hard. We built a new degreasing station and a new tumbling station. We needed the cart that was sort of in that area, holding up the tumbler, to put the robot on, because it's this heavy duty welded cart.
Yeah.
And so took the opportunity to kind of fix a lot of the things we've been complaining about. I'm really enjoying MakerPipe. Thanks for sponsoring this episode. No.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
No. Yeah, really enjoying MakerPipe. I think I've talked about this before. We're getting a little better at designing around it. Just getting all the tools in one spot for building stuff. Still a few question marks for sure. But the big thing is that I'm finding, like, we built these carts. We've been talking about modifications to those stations for a really long time. But then you're kind of like, okay, like, am I building it out of wood? Am I like, we'll do it tomorrow. But the fact that, like, once you have it built in some sort of modular, like, pretty easily modified system, it's just really easy to be like, hey, I want a little counter here for holding the bin while I'm pulling parts out of the tumbler. 10 minutes later I can have something that is legit and stable. Whereas the other way, so like it feels like that's the biggest opportunity for us, is not so much like, okay, we have a table that's the right size. Yes, that is great.
Right.
It's not immediate. Like, that normally takes like 2 hours to build. Which is still really fast, I think. Like, I think doing it in wood in a way that's stable would take longer, and then doing it in like welded steel, I don't know.
Certainly.
Yeah, it's pretty fast. But really the big one is the
adaptability. I still have myself on a spending freeze, but it's pretty high on the list. There's a bunch of kind of hanging projects where I'm like, that would really just be straightforward if we just made a little cart that went there.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I think I'm sort of tracking. I think right now we're in about $1,500.
Yeah.
Which is not zero, but
no.
We now have 2, 3, 4, 5, about 5 like custom, very custom carts. Which it does not, like, that comes out to a price of like whatever, what is that, 300-ish dollars per cart, which isn't crazy but isn't cheap. But I think bigger than that, like, anyway.
It's not cheap, but also it's like, if you look at like a rolling computer workstation on Amazon,
exactly,
anything that is worth buying probably is gonna be like that or more. And this is like deeply custom. And so once you consider design time, I think this comes out, it's pretty good. Cool. And we still have a lot of parts sitting around. So like, as we continue, that price per item will come down. Nice. We have been in discussion mostly with one company that does a lot of aerospace work, interested in subbing to us, but they want some sort of established quality manual. So I started a rough draft of one this last week.
ChatGPT?
I should have. That would have been smart. I did not. But I think the whole quality thing is interesting. The manuals themselves tend to be pretty toothless. They're basically a very long-winded way of saying we do what we do. And
that's what I've heard about all like ISO and whatever else is the mistake people make is coming up with crazy systems when they're documenting their processes instead of being like, and then we drop that into the cardboard box in the corner. Yeah. Because really they just require a documentation of exactly what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah. But it's the interesting thing that I found in the research is that the actual quality manual doesn't say any of that. It doesn't say you drop the thing in the corner. Okay. It says when we do our procurement thing, we do our procurement thing and see our procurement document. And then like that, all of your SOPs are kind of like
interesting
referenced and in a different place, which is kind of curious and interesting to, get into that and sort of see how it's all structured.
For sure.
It also makes it a bit more work because you actually do have to have SOPs for all your processes and have it, documented somewhere. So anyway, this is like very first steps on, as we were discussing, trying to pick the right train in last episode. Mm-hmm. Maybe setting ourselves up to get on some.
All roads lead to ISO.
Maybe, at least in my world right now.
Yeah.
Get on the right trains and be able to kind of take some of the work that we're more interested in and might suit us better. So we'll see. Anyway, I wrote a rough draft. It's extremely toothless, but it's there.
All of those,
starting place.
Similarly, getting like load ratings and stuff like that. It's sort of a big bureaucratic pain in the ass. Not just bureaucratic, also just like internal. What's the word? Anyway,
paper trail stuff.
Yeah, just building all the systems and recording all the numbers. It's pretty annoying, and then liability wise, it's a little vexing.
Yeah,
but I think just generally, because of that, you're actually bringing something to the table.
Yeah,
and you can charge more for it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it does make sense. It's basically having a process so that when something goes wrong, you can track down what went wrong.
Yeah.
And somebody can take responsibility.
Yeah. Also, to build some kind of confidence that when they clear a part, you send them a part and you're like this? And they say, yes, like that.
Yeah.
Then they want some confidence.
Yeah.
That subsequent parts are also like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is also true internally.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right on.
I have one other tiny one, which is we've been using the Dyson vacuums.
Oh, yeah.
So far, so good.
Sweet.
They are really quite amazing.
Nice. Yay for physics.
Yay for physics and yay for reduced dust in the shop.
Yeah.
Big yay for that, especially in paint.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening along, writing in, feedback, all the stuff. We love it.
Absolutely.
You can find me on the internet at likenprecision.com, on Instagram at lichen_MFG. We have a Patreon. Go check it out. Lurk away. Or don't if you want to, be a big baller. Send us lots of money.
Absolutely.
But feel free to lurk.
You can find me at austere_manufacturing on Instagram and austeremfg.com on the internet. You can find the podcast at Incremental CI on Instagram. Please send us a message. Tell us what we're doing right. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Also, love hearing from people who know more things about other aspects of this. I mean, people have been doing lean for a whole bunch of years, and we're
but babes in the woods.
Exactly. Yes. So quite a while, 2 years ago, people were like, you should read SMED. And I had never heard of Shigeo Shingo.
Yeah.
And that was amazing. So
here we are.
More of that. Anyway, have a great holiday, and I guess we'll be back in the new year.
Yes,
Is
indeed.
that right?
Yes.
Nice. Maybe. Thanks for listening.
Talk to you soon.